Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and the show you're about to listen to is an encore presentation of either Spirit Talk, Positive Talk, or Kevin McDonald Presents. Therefore, the numbers that may be presented on the show are not active at this time, but the content is so good, and I think you'll enjoy them. They're highly entertaining, even if I do say so myself. So with that, thank you very much for listening, and please enjoy the following episode. Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report. Show today. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Welcome to the show today. My name is Kevin McDonald. I'm your host, and we are just really lucky today. So we're going to, without further ado, first of all, I got to tell you, Kim Miller's here.
Yes, I am.
Kim Miller is always here on Wednesdays.
Yes.
And today we're just really blessed because we have a actual studio or an actual
a little
Northwest
celebrity.
Well, he's a Northwest legend, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
Tony Ventrella. Yeah. Tony Ventrella is with us for the entire hour today. And we're just really pleased. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I looked around for Ivor Haglund when you said Northwest legend or JP Patches or something.
Hey, we had JP on
I
just
bet.
a little while ago. Yeah,
He's
it
a
was
great guy,
great.
Chris Wheatus,
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with JP. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, Tony, is that you do, in addition to being a sports broadcaster for many years and now doing the morning show on Channel 13, and you also do another 30-minute piece, I believe, on Channel 13.
Yes, yeah.
And
just started.
But you also are a lecturer of some note, and you're a motivational speaker, and you have a wonderful book out, and all of it is of real positive nature. So, hence, Positive Talk in the afternoon, and having you
sort of kind of fit in, didn't it?
Yeah, it kind of fits right in there.
There's a mix. That's right. You hope so, anyway. And I like the idea of positive talk in the afternoon and positive thinking, 24 hours a day. And sometimes people, as you know, both of you know, sometimes people will look at you and kind of give you that facial expression and go, please, this positive talk thing, and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is that really you are what you think. And I know that's an old cliche, but as you think, you will follow. And if you think negatively or hateful thoughts or anything like that, your voice maybe.
That's true.
Your life will eventually follow that path. And I was raised with positive ideas in my family. We, believe me, did not have a perfect family by any means. My mother and father fought like a lot of mother and fathers fight. But the bottom line was leading by example. They led by mostly positive examples.
And which is obviously what we're trying to do, but you've made your whole career on that.
Well, it's helped, and then I started out as a barber, first of all, which a lot of people think is still sort of a joke. And the reason I was at...
so you're going to fall back on that, right?
My father...
If this doesn't work out, you'll be able to go back to that.
My dad, who lived to be 86 years old, passed away 4 years ago. He used to tease me about that in the early days because he trained me to cut hair in Connecticut when I was growing up, when I was 14. Took me in the garage and gave me a scissors and a comb and said, okay, you coordinate the scissors up and down, comb down, cut up, and coordinate that scissors and comb. And when I find that you're good enough at that, I'll let you start working on actual human models,
The poor dog.
Yeah, I know. And he wouldn't let me work on the dog, believe me, because he really loved this dog.
No.
But he brought in some of his cousins, though, and I worked on them.
Oh, he liked them a lot.
So anyway, as a result, by the time I was 16, I was a pretty good barber. I was as good as any of the barbers that he had working for him at the time. And as soon as my dad figured out two things, number one, I could cut hair, and number two, I wasn't going to steal money out of the register, he would leave for 2 weeks at a time and go fishing and leave me in charge. And it was the greatest lesson ever for me. It beat high school, college, the Army.
Taught you responsibility.
Well, it did. Yeah. And I learned how to care about people, how to treat everyone equally coming through that door, how to, if someone didn't have enough money, maybe give them a little break.
Right.
Pay it forward, they call that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it helps when my parents owned a business too, and you really learn a lot, and I was in it from an early age also. So, yeah, you learn a lot about it.
So that's my greatest lesson. And from that, I went to broadcasting. My dad used to say, keep that barber's license.
You still got
because
your scissors, right?
I have 2 sets of tools, one in each of my cars, and with the clippers, the whole thing,
Cool.
and the little spray oil, that spray lubricant that
That's
you
right.
spray on the clippers. And I still do a few haircuts, and of course, I don't charge anymore for them, and they're probably worth every penny. Too.
There you go. We're sending Kevin because I noticed he needed a little bit of trim.
I need a trim.
Yeah.
I love doing it. It's therapeutic. It's like oil painting, and I can't paint, so I just cut hair.
Yeah.
So now you are on Channel 13.
Yeah, I started last July 25th, I think it was. Yeah, I left Cairo a year ago, exactly. I left doing sports a year ago. And with an opportunity to do the Q13 morning news, which I went basically from 3 minutes a day to 3 hours a day.
Yeah,
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
Now, is the pay commensurate? Well, we won't.
Yeah,
get
we
into
were
that,
together.
Well, television pay isn't what it used to be, but then neither is really any pay in the broadcast industry. But I've always done well, and I'm grateful really for every job I've ever had. And the other thing is I've never been fired in all my years in Seattle, having worked at every television station. I worked at Como for 14 months, King for 11 years, Cairo for 9, and Q13 for a year, and have not yet been fired. I'm hoping someone sees the light and cans me. I'm kidding.
But there isn't any other stations here.
Well, see, that's
yeah,
it.
there you
I
go.
pretty much run out.
Right.
There's a Texaco station down at the
There you
corner, and that's about it.
Well, but if you ever decide that you want to exit the daily grind of broadcasting, I sat in on one of your lectures and one of your motivational speeches, and it was terrific. And I just loved the way that you're able to package it and talk to everybody, even though the folks in the room that are a little bit more enlightened, perhaps, get a lot more out of it. But you even can drag some of the guys that don't think they're being drug along.
That have the lights off.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
and I think the key is to be able to, that was the lesson that my dad taught me, and my mother to this day. My mother's 91 almost, and continues to teach that lesson from her home in Florida. She's living in Tampa, a mile or so from where my brother lives, so she's got great family support down in Florida. And I hear from her every other day. She calls and says hello. I send her letters. We don't do the email thing with Mom. A lot of the older people never got into the email.
They're sort of mouse challenged, I think,
Yeah.
is what happens. I know
Yeah.
that my mom was like that, too.
But, I'd say one thing, though. Once they do get into it, they're really
Oh,
into it.
yeah.
They love it because
Yeah.
it's instant and it's so easy. My mother's not into it. She loves to get a physical piece of mail. And I wrote a chapter about that in the book, about how some people, especially those that are lonely, love to get something that was touched by someone else.
Well, they can go out to the mailbox and there's something there for them. It's like
Exactly.
getting a present.
That's
exactly.
the thing, and it's not some ad for
Right.
for a walker. It's
Right.
it's a nice nice
Walker.
note.
No,
a
I
letter.
want a wheelchair.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I mean, because she's 91, so she's going to be getting all those ads in the mail. But so anyway. She taught me basically this: to treat everyone you meet with the same amount of compassion and understanding and tolerance. And let's face it, some of the people you meet, you don't want to hang around that long, but you don't have to treat them rudely.
No.
You just leave the room if you don't want to, be in
Exactly.
their company. And that's what I try to do when I talk to groups.
Oh, and you do.
I try to leave the room.
Yeah.
Well,
And then they talk amongst
job.
yourselves. There you go.
No, you do such a wonderful job of bringing everybody together and understanding that in the corporate world, a lot of corporations are learning that if you are positive with your employees and you have a positive attitude throughout the company, more work gets done.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Productivity goes up.
You know what else happens too? People are happier, and the other thing is you don't necessarily need. We're talking about pay and broadcasting. I've always found, I don't care what business you're in, if you take someone aside and specifically compliment them for a job they did. I mean, you got to know about the job they did. I mean, at least be specific.
Right.
Don't just say, "Hey, nice job. What do you do around here?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Deliver the mail, right?
Yeah, whatever it is, that is way worth. It's worth way more than a raise, believe it or not, and will go farther. You can give someone a $3 an hour raise, and 2 months from now they want another $3 an hour raise. But if you give them a compliment, I think it lasts a lot longer than that.
There was a study done that money or salary was way down the list of things about a job that kept you there.
Absolutely.
It can be a demotivating factor, but it's very rarely a motivating one. So we've got Tony Ventrella the entire hour. If you'd like to give us a call and ask Tony a question, you can, 425-373-5527 or outlining areas 888-298-5569. We'll be right back after these messages. All right, welcome back to Positive Talk in the Afternoon. My name is Kevin. I'm your host. I'm here with Kim Miller, and we have Tony Ventrella for the entire hour. Not that we don't have him, but he's here.
Right, but he's here. He's sitting right next to us, yeah.
And we thank Tony for coming. We wanted to talk about his book, which is called Smile in the Mirror, Let Your Light Shine. Also, his role at Q13 versus the really heavy-duty sports role that you had at Cairo.
Well, it used to be heavy duty back in the old days when I was at King for 11 years.
Yeah.
We actually had a 5 o'clock sportscast, a 6:30 sportscast, at one time a 10 o'clock and an 11 o'clock. Then I went over to Cairo, and it was the same for a while. And then out came the consultants. And
then Cairo went through that thing. Were you at Cairo when?
No, not out of the box. In the box, out of the box.
Out of the box.
Believe me,
weird.
let's say that's a whole other subject.
Yeah.
I didn't think out of the box. I know you didn't like it, Kim. I don't think it was that bad. So,
Yeah.
but I wasn't there for that. I was
okay.
there after out of the box. Apparently, they had gone back into the box.
Back into the box, okay.
And then they apparently tried to wedge me in the
Oh,
same
no,
box,
no.
and that was fine. It all
Yeah.
worked out. It was
Right.
good. It was a good effort there, and I got along great with Steve and Susan, and Margaret Larson was there for a while, and Harry Wappler,
Oh, yeah.
classic. I'm a great guy, and all the people that I work with there were terrific. But what happened is the news director came to me it's about 7 years ago now, and said to me, Tony, the research says that people don't watch local TV news for the sports; they watch for the weather, and they watch it for breaking news. Which is a whole different topic. But the fact of the matter is, he said, we're going to be cutting sports, and at some point, we'll maybe cut it out completely out of the local news. Now, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
It got to about 2.5 minutes at 6:30 and 11. I was doing 2.5 minutes of sports, 5 minutes a day, getting paid very well, and I got bored. I thought, this is not why I was brought into this world, to do 5 minutes of sports a day, to affect very few lives.
Right.
And to get paid for it. No good. I'm not accepting that. I want more. So then Q13 called, and I thought, well, let me give that'll be a fun deal. And that's been good. It's been a learning experience.
Now, just so I know, what time do you have to? You start at 6 a.m. On the air. What time do you have to get up to prepare for all that?
Well, yesterday, of course, we did the homecoming, as did all the TV stations and many of the radio stations of the USS Abraham Lincoln up in Everett, which was a wonderful day and a wonderful experience.
I heard it was kind of freezing cold up there.
It was the first hour, though. But then, Kim, when that sun came out, it was
nice.
beautiful
I
up there.
bet.
And it was. I got to tell you too, it was the most positive day I have ever been involved with. I've covered hydros, I've covered seafair races, things that you would think are positive.
Right.
But there was no complaining, there was no pushing and shoving, and there were a lot of people on that pier that I was on. But anyway, to make a long story short, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning yesterday, was at the pier by 4:15. A normal day, though, was a 3:30 wake up at the station at 4:30. But I don't mind that. I don't mind the morning hours, believe it or not. I'm a morning person.
You kind of get used to it after a while.
You do. Do you work? Did you work mornings?
I actually didn't when I was in law enforcement. I actually worked nights, but now I have a little one, and so when you have a little one, you kind of get used to morning hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
Kevin, how
now-
about you? Have you ever done mornings in any business?
Oh yeah, I used to work graveyard and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you get used to it after a while,
you do.
But it's hard for a lot of folks to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Except that it is, and I respect that in other people. For me, it's tough to be that excited, that enthusiastic at 11 o'clock at night. I always thought that was kind of an oddball hour to be at your best at 11:20, whatever time the sports comes on. And I've always been a morning person because my dad was a morning person. He'd be up at 5. Didn't have to be, but he just loved being up. He loved that first breath of fresh air in the morning. He loved the idea of going out feeding the dog. The chickens, whatever else we had in those days, and I think we had a couple of goats too back in they call them Italian police dogs, but I mean that's an inside
They'll eat everything.
joke. They do. They're unbelievable. But that was it. Mornings were always special to me, and they still are. And I'm glad to still have a shot at doing TV. It's fun.
Well, one of the things that you do to be ready at 6 o'clock in the morning, I know, because you mentioned it in your motivational talk that you gave, is that you smile in the mirror, which is also, by the way, the title of your book, which is Smile in the Mirror, Let Your Light Shine. So every morning, at what time do you go to the mirror and smile into it?
Well, as soon as I get up at 3:30, I'm right in the go in the bathroom, shower, shave, all that stuff that most people do, and I'll smile immediately into that mirror and wave to myself, and then I do a little silent prayer, which is, of course, everyone's Everyone has a different way of starting their day, and I just do a really brief, this is the day the Lord hath made, I will rejoice and be glad in it. And that's it. I don't share it with anybody. I just do it to myself. And what it does is it prepares me for that day. It prepares me with a positive attitude. The other thing I do immediately is to take inventory of my own life, not the material part of my life. Not is the heat high enough in the house? Do I have the right kind of socks today? I'm grateful for all the for the new furniture. I mean, it's none of that stuff.
Right.
It's I have running water that's fresh and clean. I can shave and brush my teeth. I have things that half the world doesn't have.
Right.
I have a floor under my feet, a roof over my head. And I know that's corny, but those are the things that I'm grateful for first thing in the morning. And what that does is it sets you off in the right frame of mind if you are grateful. And the other thing is ask a question that deserves a positive answer. For example, what can I do today to make my life a little better? Or what can I do today, better yet, to make somebody else's life a little better? Boom. That's it. Somewhere along the line, I believe the answer comes to you. And that's,
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I used to get up and say, how can I help somebody today?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was always an opportunity somehow, and it was always a great day because of it. So
You bet there'll be an opportunity. And it's not that the opportunity wouldn't have come if you didn't ask the question, but you wouldn't be looking for it.
Exactly. Right.
So you need to be looking for those opportunities.
That's
and
the key.
You need to stop occasionally and live in the moment and talk to yourself about what you're doing at this moment and take stock. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, living in the moment is a key because, let's face it, I mean, this is a sort of a morbid way to look at this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because really, when you think about it, how long does it take to die? Boom, a second. Mm-hmm. From life to death is instamatic, as as Paulie used to say in the movie Rocky. Remember him?
Right.
Instamatic. Yeah, instamatic instead of instantaneously. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, you live your life in seconds and in minutes and hours and days and weeks and years. But really, it's in seconds, and you must try at some point and be grateful for that moment that you're in now. Not always look ahead to when I get that car, when I meet that perfect woman or man, or when I get that job, or as soon as I tell that person off, I'm going to feel better. Now is the time to try and be grateful.
Oh, you miss the whole point of it if
Right.
you don't enjoy the moment. Because tomorrow never comes.
That's right.
And after all, the only thing you get to take with you are your experiences and your relationships.
Yeah.
You can't take the money. You can't take the house. You can't take all that other stuff. It goes away.
I remember I don't remember who said this, but it might have been Jack Benny or one of the older comedians who, I always love comedians. I think they're among the most intelligent people out there. And they have this great perspective. And I remember one of them saying, nobody ever lay on his deathbed wishing for more money. Wishing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody ever laid on a deathbed saying, gee, I wish I had a few more bucks, or I wish I had saved more, I wish I had gone to work more.
Right.
They all are thinking the same thing. I wish I had more time for family, for friends. Wish I had gone fishing more. Mm-hmm. I wish I'd skydived once.
Right.
You know what I mean? So those are the things to think about and be grateful for, I think.
Tony, you wrote a book, and it's called Smile in the Mirror, Let Your Light Shine. What motivated you to write this? It's a fascinating book, and it's a great thing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. A couple things. First of all, my dad, and I didn't make the goal. My goal was to write it while my father was still alive. It didn't work out because it didn't come out until 2001. He passed away in 1998. But thank God it was written by the time, and my mother's still very much alive and has several copies of it and continues to call me and ask for more copies. Now, whether she is just forgetting that she has
she's
copies.
giving them away, you know.
Well, no, she is giving them. I'm just teasing. She actually is giving them away at the place she lives in Florida. So I wanted to take these stories that I really heard from a lot of them from my dad, met some of these people through my family, and many of them I met through broadcasting and other avenues of my life. But in every case, there was a chapter about a moment, a situation, or a person that I've learned something from. And none of them are famous. There's nobody in here that's famous. And because I don't, frankly, know that many famous people, and the ones I've met haven't taught me that much. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not their fault. I just don't hang around them long enough to learn anything.
Well, and the reality is that most famous people are just people.
That's true.
Actually,
Yeah.
I do know you had an interview last week because you were
Tony Curtis.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, Tony Curtis was great, and he, I love guys or people like that from that era, especially because he made 150 movies.
Yeah.
And of course, now at age 77 with the 35-year-old wife, and
He's got a lot to keep up with.
he's got a lot to keep up with. He had the 35-year-old wife,
Right.
I think, is number one. I think he's got a 1-year-old or 2-year-old child. and he tours the country doing something like it hot.
He's at the Fifth Hour, isn't he?
Yeah, well, actually, the Paramount. It's
Paramount,
over
okay,
now.
okay.
They closed. It's over now. But he's finishing, I think, with 1 or 2 more cities. That will complete 1 year of traveling at the age of 77. The guy's got great spirit, still in pretty good health.
Good.
And I said to him, I'll just paraphrase here quickly. I said, Tony Curtis. I said, I'm proud to shake your hand. You kissed Marilyn Monroe all over that movie. And he said, I kissed Marilyn Monroe all over Marilyn Monroe.
I
said,
know.
well, that's X-rated, but
Okay,
anyway,
that's
it
more
was a great
information.
line.
Can you imagine the history that man has seen?
Oh, my
man.
God. I know. He's met so many great people, and he said Cary Grant was one of his great friends. It's just fun to meet somebody that thought Cary Grant was his best friend, you know.
That's cool.
So anyway,
Puts it into a whole different context.
it definitely does.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to give us a call and talk to Tony Ventrella yourself about anything that you'd like to bring up with him, you can do it, 425-373-5527, or just relax and enjoy yourself. We've got Tony for a whole nother half hour.
That's great. Now, or you can call us from the outlying areas at 888-298-5569.
We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Positive Talk in the Afternoon. You're listening to Kevin McDonald here on KKNW 1150 AM. Kim Miller's here, and Tony Ventrella is here. And we thank you very much for coming. And I wanted to ask you, in the motivational speech that you give, you make reference of a gentleman by the name of Earl. Would you tell that story for us, please?
I will. I'd appreciate the chance to tell that. My sister went to the University of Connecticut in the 60s and married a guy named Earl. And he, to this day, is my brother-in-law. And they had 2 children and, and on and on and on, a bunch of grandchildren. But anyway, Earl was a brilliant, still is a brilliant engineer, was working on the Trident submarine back in the 70s and 80s at General Dynamics in Connecticut, a huge defense-based company in Connecticut. And he helped really design, engineer the anti-vibration system in that sub so that the sides of the sub wouldn't vibrate underwater and create a signal to other subs that it was in the area. So it was very important work. But then the defense money ran out, and Earl, being a fly fisherman, decided to take his knowledge of this anti-vibration technology and create that in the tip of a fly rod so that the tip of the fly rod wouldn't vibrate. As you cast, if the tip is vibrating, the eye is moving and the line doesn't go through it as quickly. So he went to the Orvis Company in Vermont and he sold them the idea, and the result was the Trident fly fishing rod.
Trident.
Yeah,
Hey,
they named it the
that's
Trident
great.
rod. Now, at that time, Earl, not having a great deal of business knowledge, didn't really have the patent and this and that. And Orvis, I think, paid him off a few bucks and he was out of the picture. So he came bouncing back 2 years later and decided, you know what, the fly line doesn't go quickly enough through. I'm going to invent a fly line, or a leader part of the line that has a better coating on it so that it zips through the eye and people can cast farther, which most fly fishermen want to do. Yeah. And he found some of the top fly casters in the country. They tested his what do you call the first one of anything? I can't think of the word he used. I'll think of it in a second.
Prototype?
Yeah, thank you. Prototype. And Orvis loved the idea. They patented it. It's called Wonderline, and it is available in every sporting goods store that I've ever seen. And now it's worldwide, and I think he makes a buck from everyone that's sold.
And he was a little smarter the second time, I would say.
Yeah, second time around he was
right.
smarter. But so from an unemployed guy in Connecticut, rather than just hang his head and worry about his life, he came up with an idea that truly was a winner after a lot of losers, believe me. He came up with a bunch that didn't work, but he's a wonderful guy on top of that, which really helps. And everyone needs a brother-in-law named Earl. I just love that name.
Earl.
Earl.
There's a lot of folks who listen to this show that call in when we have self-help people on and coaches and so forth they don't have a direction in life. They're at a point in their life when they want to make some changes. They don't really know how to go about doing that. And it sounds like Earl found the secret.
Well, he did. The secret really is 2 things. Don't complain, and sit down and map out. A lot of people can't visualize what they want to do because they're afraid to. And I tell friends this, I tell myself this every day, because believe me, I don't care how positive you appear. There are moments when you have down moments. I don't care who you are. And I think that what you need to do is you need to visualize the life that you want and actually write it down. And I'm talking about everything from your physical being to the people you want around you. to what you want, even materially in life, although I think that's of least importance. But
well, I think if you have all the other stuff, that will come.
That's true. That's a good point. It's a very good point. It will come. But for example, if you are looking for a car, just to really boil this down, do you just go from lot to lot till you find one you see? No, that'll take years doing that. Or do you visualize what it is you want? You want something kind of snappy, kind of quick, or do you want something that's got room for the family? You have to at least think of that first before you can go and look for the physical result of what you want. And the same thing goes with how to plan your life. I even talk to people about this who have had relationships that have just ended and they're looking ahead to something else. And I always say, well, you know what? It doesn't hurt to visualize what you're looking for. Right. Because that person's out there somewhere. And
now you know what you don't want, so
that's true too.
Get what you do want.
Check
that's
it off the list. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, in my age group, we're going. A lot of my peers are going through that. Their first marriages of 10 or 15 years are ending, and they're separate. And a lot of folks are out there searching for what they want to do with themselves.
Oh, I know.
If they just pursue their dreams.
That's one of the things. And the other thing, too, is give and take. And something else, by the way, since you're on that subject, Kevin, I'm going to swing over to something else that I went to was MC at a great reception event, banquet in the Beacon Hill area of Seattle called Dads. It's a group called Dads in which a couple of people get fathers back with their kids and ex-spouses, ex-girlfriends, and at least make it to a point where they can talk and discuss what's going on. Because a lot of cases you have boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, they'll split up, there'll be a couple kids involved, and then you have this fighting. You get a couple of lawyers involved. The next thing you know, the 2 kids or the 3 kids or whatever it is are lost. Right. They're in the middle of the whole thing. You got this buildup of bitterness and hatred. And there's a group called Dads that I was so impressed with that helps bring the families at least back to not necessarily get married again. Let's face it, if you've gone through a divorce, you're probably not going to marry that person again. But at least you could be kind.
Right.
And civil.
Yeah, and civil and work with the kids. There are a lot of groups like that, but I was impressed with this one group, and if you ever hear about it, it might be interesting to get more information. DADS, with a little period after each.
Do they have a website?
They must, I wish I had more information about it, but I don't. I do know that I was impressed by the banquet in which they recognized some of the fathers, mostly. It's a dad's operation. The mothers, of course, equally important. But the dads were recognized that night. Guys that had, frankly, some of them had been addicts that had come off the streets and gone back and found their kids again and kind of reinvented that whole family idea. And it's really working.
Which is something that we stress as community. And we that is the basic community aspects of it.
I think so, and it's not easy to do. You got to swallow some pride and give and take. You know that.
Yep.
Oh, especially when they've got the child support payments that are going back for ways, and a lot of that. There's big issues there.
There's issues there because the guys or whoever's paying the child support. In some case, the women are paying the child support. You're looking at that ex-spouse, and you're going, "Do they really need that much? Is it all going to the kid?" Instead of thinking like that, there's got to be some sort of middle ground there. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but it's one of the. It's a huge problem and can manifest itself sometimes tragically, as it did in Tacoma just a week and a half ago with the police chief and so on.
Wasn't that an awful thing?
Yeah, I mean that's a rough one, boy. That's all I can say. You wonder and think about those kids, and other kids in that situation.
You've been involved with the sports scene for like ever.
Yeah.
and I just wanted to ask you, because it seems to me that when I was growing up, and I'm 45, so in the 70s and 60s and 70s was my time to be really impressed by sports figures and so forth. When like the Baltimore Orioles was 71, and the same team played 3-4 years in a row.
Oh yeah.
And Brooks Robinson and Frank Robinson and all of those guys.
Sure.
Nowadays, it's changed. It's not nearly as positive as it used to be.
Well, you remember this reminds me of the story, the goose that laid the golden egg, that old story. And what happened in the 60s and 70s is that the goose was starting to lay some golden eggs. There was success. And then the goose laid another golden egg, and then another. And then the owners started to say, you know what, we want more eggs and we want them faster. So they killed the goose.
Right.
And they found out that there were no golden eggs inside anymore. And so basically that's what you've got. You had a situation where the fans were loyal to players, and players were loyal to their teams. Mm-hmm. And now with free agency and agents and owners who can get a little greedy, And greed is really the problem all the way around here. Greed and then what I call false pride. That's another thing.
That classic Macbeth story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the same thing. So what you have now is instead of the Edgar Martinez, who is the rarity of today,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
or Jay Buhner or Dan Wilson. Now, we're fortunate here in
Yeah,
Seattle.
we are.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of players that really have stuck around. And frankly, I think it's unfortunate that Junior ever left because I think he belonged here in Seattle. I wish that he didn't have that false pride that he had or that insecurity and could have stuck around here and had finished out his career in Seattle. It didn't work out that way. But anyway, the bottom line is because of that lack of loyalty, I believe the game is being hurt. You don't have the major crowds you used to have. You do here in Seattle still, but not in Milwaukee, not in Baltimore, not in Tampa, where they had 14,000 for a Yankee game the other day.
Wow.
Because there's no loyalty. People don't. That old saying, "You can't tell the players without a scorecard." That is totally true now. How do you fix it? I don't know. I wish I could come up with one for that. Maybe you put a cap on salaries and don't allow free agency anymore. I don't know.
They won't go for that.
No.
Because now there's just too much money in it, and until the house folds,
Right.
and teams start going under, then it's kind of, from your perspective, it's kind of good that you got out of that, because it's kind of icky now, isn't it?
Well, it always had some elements of ick.
Yeah.
That's a technical term.
Yeah, it's ickier than it's ever been before. And the other thing is the greed factor can get in your way. And I'm not piling on here, but we're going to bring up the name Mike Price, because I happen to think up until this couple of weeks ago here, Mike has always been one of my favorite coaches and individuals for one reason. Very personable guy, perhaps a bit too personable, but you know what I'm saying here.
With the ladies.
He was a social man.
Yes.
Yeah. But he, every single time I would have an interview scheduled with him, he would call to confirm it, or if he couldn't make it, he would call personally to say, "I'm sorry, you're so good to our program. I want to be there. I can't. Can we make it tomorrow?" Well, very few coaches do that. They have somebody else do that for them. But Mike was good that way. I think I was telling Kim this before, and Kevin, you too, we were talking about this off the air a minute ago. When he first got the job, the first red flag that I saw, I don't know if anyone around me saw it, was with that first night when he went to Alabama for the interview and the press conference, and it was announced that he was the coach. He called his assistant coach and now head coach, Bill Doba, and he said, "Bill, it's exciting. I don't have to leave my office to go to the bathroom. There's a bathroom in the coach's office down here. This is really plush and it's cool and it's the penthouse and all that." And I thought, oh man, if you're that impressed
With the bathroom.
with that kind of stuff, that early in your career in Alabama, it might be tough when you start seeing some real flashy things in front of you.
like they have a loss in the loss column, or the first negative press that he gets in the because that's going to happen down there.
Oh man, yeah.
Because following Bear Bryant is that's hard to do.
That's a tough one. I mean, the other thing too, we talked about this, Kim, you having been in law enforcement, we talked about this. Every time you see a news story that ends in not every time, but many times that ends in tragedy, it's always, and the shooting occurred at 2 a.m. outside so-and-so strip joint in some place. Well, geez, if you're going, very seldom will it happen at 1 p.m. at a Costco store. You know what I mean? You know
and
what
if you were in bed in your room at 2 a.m.
Right, where you're supposed to be.
By
I didn't mean to
yourself.
mention Costco in that context. But you know what I'm saying? If you're at Walmart shopping for diapers, you're most likely going to be safe, But if you're going out at 2 a.m. to a strip joint, no kidding. Something bad is going to happen. I'm sorry. And it's not like they're not going to be watching you down there in the Bible Belt,
especially when you're a brand new coach. So.
Yep.
Well, it's just amazing to me that money like that, and somebody who spent his whole life building his reputation, can have it all go away with a wild weekend or a wild month or what was it? It must have been a wild month.
Well, I think some things built up to it. I'm not sure how deep the story goes. The other theory that I have, and I still stand by this, is that somebody, and believe me, I'm not excusing what Mike did. He made a stupid mistake and should have paid some kind of a price. Mm-hmm. But I think someone was laying in wait, if you'll pardon the expression, for him. I'm not talking about Destiny, the stripper either. I'm talking about somebody that either wanted the job or had some alum friend who had a friend who wanted the job, because Mike is not an Alabama guy. He was not he's not an alum of Alabama. He's from the Northwest. He went to high school here. Right. He went to college here. he is a cougar. And I think when somebody was ticked off that he got that job, maybe more than one person, and maybe even were looking for something, he should have known that going in, that I better stay squeaky clean. And, of course, I feel bad for his family.
Oh, yeah, because this isn't only going to affect his job.
No.
This is going to affect his life.
I mean, I'd backhand him across the backyard if I was his wife.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll bet you she has.
Well, I'm sure.
You know, the
That's true.
saddest part of the whole thing is that he never signed the contract.
Well, I know, because there was a clause in it about behavior. That's the irony of the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
He thought that was too intrusive. Well, yeah.
Well,
maybe it
obviously there's a reason. Yeah.
was. Yikes.
Absolutely. We're talking to Tony Ventrella and Kim Miller on the Kevin McDonald Show, Positive Talk in the afternoon. We're going to come back right after these messages, so stay with us. All right, welcome back to Positive Talk in the afternoon on KKNW 1150 AM. My name is Kevin. I'm your host. Kim Miller's over there.
That would be me.
How are you?
I'm good.
And Tony Ventrella is with us, and Tony has written a great book. And Tony, you can buy this book anywhere virtually now.
Actually,
can't you?
yes, you can. Two stores that have been real good to me, though, with two stores. It's really one store with two locations, Third Place Books. There's one in Seattle now, oh my gosh, in the Ravenna area. Of course, I don't know the exact address. And the other one, the bigger Third Place bookstore, is in the Lake Forest Park Town Center. That's the bookstore that covers an entire upper floor of the mall.
Wow.
And it's wonderful, wonderful store. Third Place Books. They had, who'd they have the other day there? From Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh, really?
The mom, Doris Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Wrote a book. She was on our show on Q13 the other day and went and did a book signing there. They just mobbed the place for her. Also, Scott Carpenter, one of the original astronauts, was there a couple months back, and it's a wonderful store. Third Place Books. They've got it. The Barnes & Nobles, I either have it or can do it, can order it. Costco's had it in the past. And so, yeah, it's $15. It's a bargain.
It's a great book. It really is. And the way you talk about how you designed it.
Well, I had a lot of help from the different people who know how to do that kind of stuff. And I decided to self-publish for a couple reasons. First of all, it would have taken me 2 years to get a publisher interested, and I didn't want to take the time. I wanted my mother to see this book in finished form, so I self-published the first two printings, and it's gone very well. So to do that, you got to find somebody that can do that stuff. And I met with a self-publisher over in West Seattle, a woman by the name of Tony, Toni, and then Debbie, another one in West Seattle, was my person in charge of the artwork. Barbie is someone that helped me, assisted me in putting it together. And between all of us, we came up with these ideas to use pictures, ideas to start each chapter with a motivational quote and end each chapter with some sort of a summary, sort of a to-do.
I like this. You're at the end of it. You have your focus, your light, and I like this one here. It says, "Only in America do we stress over everything we eat. Drop everything you're doing right now and go eat a donut."
That's right.
That's my favorite one.
Well, I tell people that at banquets I go to, and they love that because they're always picking around the dessert.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I shouldn't have this. I can't have that. And the fact is, if you just seriously take a walk 3 or 4 times a week, as briskly as you can do it, if you can, and get out, get some exercise. You can at least have some of the sweets you like, or some of maybe a piece of pizza once in a while. Don't deprive yourself. Just get out.
Because then you just want it more.
Right, just
That's
burn
right.
it off a little bit. Plus, it's depressing. I think diets are, the first 3 letters of the word diet are die. And so I've never liked diets. Never been involved. Let me tell one other quick story here, unless you have another question, Kevin or Kim. Let's see, is it the 17th? Is that a Sunday? I believe Sunday the 17th is the cystic fibrosis event at Seattle Center. Great Strides, it's called. It's the 6-mile walkathon that we do.
Is that for this month in May?
This month, May.
17th is a Saturday, but the 18th
Oh, the
is
18th, and it's a Sunday. Yeah,
right.
It's the 18th.
The only reason I know that is my birthday. So
for gosh sake.
And
Well,
it's Mount St. Helens Day. So.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
Man, that's a big day. Well, happy birthday in advance.
My birthday is bigger, but we'll
All
talk
right,
about
we'll
that
go
later.
there.
We'll be
Yeah.
out there. All right,
Okay.
well, really. We'll find out.
9/11.
Oh, my gosh. Holy cow. Whoa. There's something, huh? You get overshadowed every year.
I
have
know.
to- What a terrible thing to remember. But I'm glad you told me that's the one first positive thing I've heard about 9/11 is that you were born. But my sister Bunny, my mother lost 2 girls, 2 daughters from cystic fibrosis, 2 of my sisters. One before I was born. I did not know Joan. She was 6 months old before I was born. And the other I did know, my sister Bunny. She's in the book. She was 10 when I was 11. She passed away at the age of 10. Both had cystic fibrosis. So ever since I got into broadcasting, I have been doing events for CF. I just noticed the other night on the news that they think they've discovered a way to replace the damaged gene that causes cystic fibrosis. Now, they may be still years away from being able to do it, but they're getting closer. And there's a doctor named Bonnie Ramsey who's in Children's in Seattle who's done a lot of great research on CF. So anyone involved with CF who knows about it, I just want to let them know. 1 o'clock, the 18th, Seattle Center at the outdoor stage area, we kick off the annual Great Strides Walk, and I appreciate everyone who gets involved in that. Back to my sister for a second, Bunny, who lived with us her whole life. Basically, you can't breathe. It suffocates you. Your lungs fill with this thick, gooey mucus, and it's awful. And she ended up having a lung removed, and, it was ugly. But she had great spirit. She had a great attitude about every day, and she lived her life day to day to day. People ask me where I get my positive attitude. It comes from her more so than my parents. Because I think kids know. You've all seen kids that have cancer at a young age or different, the Make-A-Wish kids. They kind of have a sense that this is my life right now. I got to live this life now. I may not have 14, 15, 16, may not have a chance to ever get married, meet anybody, have kids, go to college. And I think she sensed it all along. So she lived every day as if it were the last, which is not a bad lesson for the rest of us. And that's where my motivation for this book comes from, as well as Mom and Dad and all the other people I wrote about. So I think it's worth picking up. And if you,
it's got some great pictures in it too.
Well,
a lot of good people in it.
Anytime you can put your Uncle Ralph, who's a 5'2" Italian, 84-year-old, the oldest comedian who's still working in the city of Tampa, Florida, you got something with a glass eye and shrapnel from World War II, and he's still telling jokes. I mean, that's a good story.
Tony, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to book you to speak in front of their group, how do they go about doing that?
Well, there's a good question. I'm going to give you an email address right now because I have someone who books me. Her name is Barbie. I don't want to give her number out on the air because I think it's also a home number. So I'm going to give you a web address or an email address. I'm so high-tech oriented. It's basically just Tony@Q13.com. You can reach me at Q13, Tony at Q13.com if you're interested, and I can get you, in touch with Barbie, and she can call you. And because a lot of the groups I call are nonprofits. I mean, that call me are nonprofits, and many of them are companies that actually have a budget. And we do everything we can schedule. We do.
Do you have anything coming up?
I've got a couple of them coming up. May, I take off May usually because it's a ratings month and we're involved quite heavily in the TV work, so I don't do any in May. I got a couple in June, scheduled out through the rest of the year with a few each month.
That's good.
And schools and colleges and church organizations. And a couple of weeks ago, the Lions Club, and before that, the Tacoma Prop Club down there honored some students, and I'm all over the state, and it's fun. I'd like to do it nationally, frankly, because I think I have a lot to share, and it'd be fun to do.
I can tell you, after sitting through one, you are certainly worth listening to.
I appreciate that, Kevin.
Because it's a lot of we had a great time, and I can't stress enough how I truly enjoyed in the business environment that we were in at the time, the very stuffy, kind of environment that we had. You kind of blew the doors off a lot of folks' perception of what they thought business should be, because it's different and it can be very successful if it's positively done.
It can be fun. And I think the other thing is, too, people know that I've been involved in sports for something like 30 years or so, and then they expect a sports speaker. And there's nothing wrong with a sports speaker, don't get me wrong, but they expect to hear about, what game I covered in Chicago in 1986. Well, I don't talk about that. I talk about real life happenings. If someone asks me a sports question, I'd be happy to answer it, and it's fun to answer. But there are a lot more people, a lot more expertise in sports than but I do think I have a few things about positive thinking that I can share.
There's some great stuff in here. Just going through it. And it's an easy book. I mean, it's very, very easy to read, and it's good. I liked it a lot.
That's the key. If you won't sit down and read it, what's the point? Right. It had to be something that I would sit down and read. And that's a good way to do it.
There you go.
Good criteria. I thought, if I won't read this, no one else will, and I wrote it. So anyway.
Well, I got to tell you, just from somebody who you could have, since it was your dad's barbershop, you could have said, oh, boy, here's my life. I'm going to be a barber for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And been fine. But you followed your heart. You followed your dream. And you became who you are today. And we thank you for it.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Because it's not very often that there are a lot of folks that we talk to that are not as gracious and as kind as you are, and it's great to have you. So
I appreciate that. How are we doing on time? Are we out? Or we're done, aren't we?
Yeah,
We're just about
right
done,
up
but
there,
go
yeah.
ahead. You got something
I was
quick?
going to say, I just want, one of my favorite chapters is priming the pump. And basically, and I'll tell it in 30 seconds, what that's all about is sort of taking a chance, sort of like paying it forward, but take a little bit of a risk. I'm not talking about bungee jumping with no clothes on. I'm talking
come
about,
on.
Well, that too.
You might be able to sell tickets to that.
I'd sell tickets for if Kevin did it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Reminds me of a line from Rodney Dangerfield the other night. My wife used to be afraid of the dark, and then she saw me naked. Now she's afraid of the light.
I bet.
Yeah. So, anyway, but the point is, take a little risk. Try something that you think you can't do, and eventually you'll convince yourself that you can do it.
And you'd be surprised how easy it is to just kind of fall off that turnip truck, and then it just kind of flows.
Sure, absolutely.
Which is a wonderful thing. Tony Ventrella, Channel 13, formerly of Channel 7, formerly of Channel 5.
Formerly, yeah.
And we thank you very much for coming. And the next hour, as a matter of fact, this is appropriate because the girls that are coming in, they have a support group, and they call themselves the Athletic Supporters.
Really?
Yes. So they use the other name for it, but that's okay. They're coming in. We're going to talk about how they support themselves and coach each other through all the mysteries of life that they have and the challenges. And even Kim's going to be in that. I'm going to be the dumb white guy in the corner.
That's good. Okay.
So I'm going to keep to myself.
He plays that well, doesn't he?
He does.
I do.
Yes, he does.
It's sort of like typecasting, but in any event, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Tony.
Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other because each other's all we got. See you next time on My Independence Report.